Hey everybody, welcome to the Anthony and Todd Show. We are a weekly podcast that critiques and memes music. I'm your host Trevor, aka Deuce Bigelow, and I'm joined by my ever-attentive co-host, my best friend, my pal, my amigo, my droog, Vincent.
aka Duke'em forever. It wouldn't be Duke'em forever. Deuce'em forever.
Deuce'em forever. Amazing. This is episode 132 of the Anthony and Todd Show, an episode we would like to call The Allegory is for Anti-Vaxxing.
That's the big message.
That's what the entire thing was about. I can't believe I pick up on that the first time.
It isn't, but it consumes up most of the space, weirdly enough.
It consumes my mental space. Royce the 5'9" is living rent-free up here.
Him and his not needles. He's not for vaccinating people. He's from just like spitting.
He's for the flu mist. He doesn't like the shot.
Hey, you got polio?
I think he's afraid of needles. That's why he's anti-vaxxing.
No, because Eminem got a flu shot and then he made Revival and Kamikaze.
I never want that to happen to me.
Today we got some new albums from BTS or with Map of the Soul 7, Moses Sumney with Gray Part 1, Deuce with Memphis Massacre 2. I actually really adore this album art.
I think it's really funny.
Think it's funny. Why would you put Memphis in a blender?
That's one of my favorites of the year so far.
And finally, Royce the 5'9" with The Allegory.
Wow.
I actually had to cut bits out because I kept on thinking of Moses Sumney's bare ass, apparently. I kept on just saying...
It's pretty distracting, I know.
Just look at it. He's double cheeked up. Just standing there vibing. Not a cell phone in sight. Sight to see. If you want to follow Anthony Todd Show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you can find us at Anthony Todd. You can find us at youtube.com/The Anthony Todd Show. You can find us on Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, by searching The Anthony Todd Show in your favorite podcast browser. Without any more of a further ado, it's time to get into the or it's time to go behind the scenes. That's probably what it bet.
I bet so.
That's cool because it stands for their backronym. Unlike which is their actual name.
It's just the onomatopoeia.
BTS with Map of the Soul 7.
Wow. BTS is a Seoul 7-member South Korean soul group boy band.
South Korean soul band.
They're under Big Hit Entertainment, Big Crit Entertainment. I don't really understand how their naming process works.
Okay, list them off.
As far as no, not their names. I know their names.
Oh,
their names make sense. Jin, Suga, J-Hope, RM, Jimin. I think Jimin, V, and Jungkook. He's the most popular.
Is it V or 5?
I think it's V. I just call him V.
Jungkook's the most popular.
I think so.
I thought it was Suga. I thought it was Suga or RM because RM's the leader.
I think it's Jungkook.
Okay. I don't really have a personal opinion.
I don't either. I think I just see him the most often. Like in the streets.
The only one that I really have a care for is I like Suga's feature in the last Halsey album.
I like Suge Knight's feature.
Yeah, Suge Knight had a great feature.
He's really good. I meant more so I don't understand their naming process of albums.
Yeah.
Because based off of Map of the Soul Persona, which was the EP.
It's almost like the way I interpret it. This is Map of the Soul is almost like an EP. It's like the prelude to everything, and then Map of the Soul 7's the actual title.
Yeah, so I feel like it's
because there's 7 of them.
Very similar to like the Painkiller Paradise and what was released before that?
Painkiller something.
Path to Paradise or something.
Like, yeah. And
where it's just like a couple of songs, and then it was like the appetizer for the main course.
Yeah. This is their 4th Korean language studio album, and I think they had 3 other Japanese language albums, so this is technically their 7th album. So there's 7 albums, 7 members,
7 maps of the soul.
Each member gets their own individual track on here. We were kind of fond of their EP, even though we just said it was pretty mediocre at a lot of times. But there was moments like Intro Persona and Boy to Love that were okay.
They're also on this album.
Yeah, I don't like that decision. Even though I do like Intro Persona, I think I like it better now than I did. Even though I think it still kind of drags on a little bit. But I think RM's performance is pretty decent and exciting. And I think there's some pretty indecent and exciting, like, trap pop tracks on here. Because essentially what this album is, I don't really understand, okay? Like, I don't understand BTS, and not in the sense of, like other J or K-pop groups. I can kind of get how they're different. Their style of pop music is more different or hypnotic or strange. BTS, for my only opinion, which has been from the previous EP and this, they're just making Western music.
Yeah.
There's no difference, and like that doesn't necessarily have to be the case if the music's compelling. I don't care if it's from anywhere, if it's compelling. But like the hype I seen surround them, only to be delivered just like West Coast, or not West Coast, but Western pop music is just very disappointing. To be fed all this hype and then also only receive something new in a different packaging.
Yeah.
Because like
I see what you
I think
mean.
the only difference between BTS is their fan base and the way the medium's consumed, not necessarily music itself. Because what we got on here is you got pretty much contemporary Western pop, and you get trap. And the trap is probably the more enjoyable of the two, but it gets pretty old after a while. This album gets pretty old after a while because it's an hour and fucking 14 minutes, which we don't need, like, on anywhere, because, like, they have a hard time, in my eyes, differentiating their personalities to me.
Yeah.
And it's not just the language barrier, it's more of a performance. It seems like whether their harmonies or their pitching, which I find pretty annoying on here, and the way they kind of are lined up across this entire thing, I find it hard to separate them. Even when you give them the individual tracks, none of them really stand out as members, and it's not because there has this collaborative union, it's just because they're all pretty much mediocre or middle of the road. And I mentioned I Like Suga because I saw him on the feature on the Lost Halsey album. He doesn't really stand out that much on here. He's more standout than like everyone else, I guess. Everyone besides RM, because they both have more of the important tracks. Interlude, Shadow, Intro Persona, two of the better tracks on here, but they don't stand out a tune because those kind of feel like the same structure of the same track. There's some nice pop out tracks on here, like 0 O'Clock, I think is fun. But a majority of this is just a overabundance of just lame pop cliches that we've seen before. The inherence of the influx of trap into pop, which is not inherently a bad thing, but it's something that's been done before. It's not revolutionary. The combining of hip hop and pop, done before, not revolutionary. These can be interesting concepts, but they don't build to anything new. It just builds to what the typical pop palette is. I don't get a lot of personality out of some of these features. The collaborations with Halsey and Sia feel super underwhelming. The Sia one feels super empty, super payday-like. Like, this is just a money thing more than an actual resource or an actual wanted collaboration from her. And I just feel like this just melds together. There's 20 tracks on this thing, and they all just kind of compress into the same experience. On the EP, it was a lot less, and the more distinctions stood out. But on this, like, it all blends for me into this overabundant experience of just emptiness. And I just don't think there's any super noteworthy material on here. And that's about it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Going back to your point about like Western music, I don't understand like a lot of the hype around this album, or like BTS as a whole, if they're just delivering Western music. Like why focus in on them specifically?
Yeah, I remember a girl in my music class once gave a presentation on K-pop, and she brought up BTS and someone else, I can't remember. But she said, yeah, the K-pop Korean music is so much better than American music. And then I listened to this and it's the exact same fucking thing.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Now, like, differentiating the performers, I think there's more that goes into it from, like, a out of music perspective. Almost like creating that persona around the members of the band. Almost like, this is not a very good example, but, like, the Monkees,
Yeah.
their TV show kind of thing. Or like the Beatles had all their movies, and Elvis was an actor, like that kind of thing. I think like BTS does something like pretty similar to that.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of fans are like latching onto them as people.
Yeah.
But as musicians and performers, like, I don't know, this feels very
Cookie cutter.
empty to me and cookie cutter. Exactly. And like, can they nail it sometimes? Yeah, I think so. There's some fun tracks on here that we've talked about. But there's also, I feel like, a lot of filler and stuff that I just like don't really want to listen to.
Yeah, and the one thing I just want to mention really briefly, their pitching, I brought it up a little bit earlier. They go way too high to the point where it's hard to tell who's who.
Yeah.
And it sounds feminine, which is not like a bad thing. But when the members are so garbled together in this like mess of things, it kind of adds to the distraction, and also their harmonies can come off as very strange. I don't really care for it.
Yeah.
It comes off as like almost they're one person instead of like people collaborating, which is weird. It doesn't feel like a group effort. It feels like one person split into 6 at times, or split into 7 at times. But yeah, I don't care for this. I don't understand it. It seems more like they're important only because of the things that surround or are prevalent in their own culture, rather than what the music actually entails. I don't think this is anything. Keep in mind, of course, if you tell me this right now, I think this is a 4.
I like to agree with that.
Yeah. Are you ready to part the Red Sea?
Yes, I am.
Time to go over the latest. Are you ready to part the Red Sea with your ass?
The one part was his crack.
Are you ready to go over this Moses Sumney? We're going over this Moses Sumney album, Gray, Part 1.
Wow. Moses Sumney is an LA-based singer-songwriter known for his really nasally, high-pitched, spiritual kind of themes around his albums and his voice.
Yeah, his accent. I didn't mean to put theme in the notes, but like more of how he accents himself.
Yeah.
In that manner.
I like that like spirituality. I feel like kind of surrounds.
Yeah.
He's
It
very,
reminds
like,
me a little bit
ethereal.
of Serpent Feet, how he presents himself in
they're
that
very
manner,
similar.
too.
He released Aromanticism back in 2017.
I don't really have experience with the album, but I know it's really critically praised for what it was. I tried getting into it around 2017, and I really couldn't, so I don't remember much about it. But I just wanted to bring note that this is his like second most well-known world to date. He's collaborated with acts like Flume, James Blake, and I was excited because the single "Me in 20 Years" was fucking fantastic. But it's not on this part; it's on the next part. But
Speaking of the next part, the second part releases on May 15th.
so this is
part
a
of
double
album.
This is a double album.
And I'm glad that he didn't release it all at once.
Okay, yeah,
Personally.
I kind of like when double albums are split, but I'm still gonna listen to it probably as the double album, maybe.
Should we have held off the review?
No, because I think that's just more of an experience. Well, I'll focus more on the second part because if they're released in individual parts, it's meant to be listened that way.
Right, that's like kind of what I was thinking. Like, I didn't like Scrum Life 3, a triple album. So released all at once.
That should
and I
have
was
been 3
so
albums.
Stupid.
But like
exactly.
I don't know, like it says it's a double album, but part of me thought like also like this is like a number project, not really like a double album.
I
like
see.
Saturation 1, 2, 3. That's not a 3-piece album. They have similar themes, but they're not like 3 projects. But yeah, I was really interested going into this thing because Moses Sumney has impressed me before in his features and his singles since, and I wanted to see what was up. What's up in this album? pretty much all I expected.
It's all up.
It's all up, all looking up from here. Yeah, I think this is just phenomenal. I think this is a lot of fun to be had. I think his one of the things I had a worry about was his voice gonna get stale? No, it doesn't. It's still phenomenal. He mixes it up a lot. He finds voids to fit his voice. And there's some jazzier production at times. There's some more mechanical-like production at times. There's some more acoustic production at times. Indie-based production at times. Electronical-based production at times. It varies a lot. I really enjoy that. There's great moments like Conveyor, which has this repetitive...
It's got the Donkey Kong Country drums.
has this repetitive anthematic percussion leading to his frail vocals breaking down the track, essentially, and having these weird repetitive vox moments at the end. Gagarin, I'm going to call it that, is very jazzy, lounge-like, with warm and hazy vocal distortion and dissonance, which is really awesome. And he's almost asking for life to dedicate his life to something bigger than himself. And it has this really great poetic moment on the verse. The galaxy is a broken mirror. Slowly the asteroid gets nearer. My stripe does not belong to me. For that big blue bolt, I'll let go. For that gold medal, surrender. Just almost hoping, realizing how small you are in the universe and how you aren't really going to amount to much in the grander scheme of things. But in the end, you got to find something to look forward to or something bigger than yourself with your ambition to lead to. There's some terrific thoughts about masculinity, like on Neither Nor, saying when I was a little boy, I'd scream at the big misty nights, yet breathe out smoke with no fire. I'd become what I was scared of. I fell in love with the in-between, talking about masculinity and how it's viewed and how people almost viewed them with feminine qualities. And living in that in-between, how there really doesn't have to be a binary. And saying, because in the valley of the Sure, you cannot pick neither nor. You're fated to pick a door, only lonely or lukewarm. Feeling like his struggle with masculinity leads them to be alone, and not having these masculine qualities leads them to be alone, which is really nice. And expressing that sentiment, not being alone is not nice, but expressing his own sentiment towards that, I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
This actually has one of the more interesting breakdowns of polyamorous relationships on here, with Polly talking about, are you dancing with me or just merely dancing? Thinking about how people in polyamorous relationships there sometimes can be a struggle whether they feel like their moments really mean something or not in the grander scheme of things, since they go around so much. And then talking about how he doesn't want to live here, sometimes don't want to live at all. I want to be cotton candy in the mouths of many a lover. Talking about how he just wants to float and be different and not be tied to something. It's really one of those reflection of polyamorous relationships that showcases the background of the character that is in it, instead of just kind of poking the problems at it, which is nice. Because it still reflects the issues of the individual, but not issues of the problem. Or not the issues of polyamorous relationships, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And how a person could fit into that role, which is nice to express those things and express the sentiment of a track.
Yeah.
There's a really cool track called Colour. I'm just going to call it Colour, even though it's...
Colouor.
Has these beautiful horns. And most in the Sumney is talking about how you try to convince someone to accent their color palette with makeup, and why don't you wear some color, bring out your eyes. You say you never bought her because you're telling lies. If this person doesn't want to live that life, Moses is trying to get them to express more about themselves, which I think is nice, and it's okay to wear makeup and express that type of personality. I think is fine, or express more about your personality through your look. It's fine, it's personally acceptable, even though it's not for everyone. There's a lot of great fantastical vocal sequences, like Cut Me and Viril. Lots of themes of masculinity and challenging it and being bold as an individual. And I think Moses Sumney is a completely bold and visionary voice that's completely extravagant, lovely, stylized. I could talk about this album a lot, but I think at the biggest grand of things, I love how he switches up the sound space to a bunch of different areas, creating a bunch of different hooks, catchy and nasally areas for his voice to fly in and out of. And he's truly the best thing about this project. He stands out as the most important thing to the Moses Sumney album, which makes sense.
I also don't think any of the sounds really overstay their welcome either. Like, he knows when to switch it up and knows when maybe a track has gone on for a little too long or has gone on for long enough. And he has no problem like ending it and switching to a completely new thing. But I think what really is cool is the transitions.
Yeah.
Transitions throughout this whole thing make it seem like it's a whole larger work, like that golden thread that's leading us through all the different soundscapes and all the different interludes, like intros and outros kind of things, which I also really enjoy. I like the little interludes in between this, between the full songs or like bigger projects, I guess. I think that they give the listener a nice break before you go into another like grandiose soundscape.
Yeah. I really don't have too much to say. I think he just completely varies his style super well. He doesn't seem stagnant. He seems completely liquid, almost like his ass under this waterfall. He just seems bold, reflective, emotional, able to be humanized, relatable. You can be empathetic towards him. There's just so many other adjectives I could throw his way. I really enjoyed this. Keep in mind all scores are futile and meaningless right now. I'm thinking this is an 8+ currently.
I think it's an 8.
Yeah. And when the album comes out, combining the two pieces may higher the score or lessen the score.
I will hire Moses Sumney
To part the Red Sea?
Yes.
Okay.
I sure hope Moses doesn't take a deuce in that water.
That's good enough transition. Time to go over the latest Deuce album, Memphis Massacre 2. This is the second tragedy.
This has happened before, and it'll happen again.
Deuce, Memphis MC, second generation MC as well. His father, Duke Nitty, was a local rapper and producer who enjoyed success in the Memphis area. He's currently signed to Quality Control, and as long as a bunch of other people, have found him recently because of his hit single, Crunk Ain't Dead.
Remix.
Crunk Ain't Dead, and then the remix. Crunk Ain't Dead has the allegory, as Royce the 5'9" would say, for Crunk. He is the allegory because at the beginning he's dead.
He's showing everybody he's not dead.
And then the crew revives him. He comes out of the comatose. The Crunk is alive like he is alive. The beautiful metaphor.
He lives in you. He lives in me.
The Crunk lives in you. It lives in me. So I was interested going into this, but I also know it's Quality Control, and Quality Control doesn't really have the best record.
They have no quality control.
Because you have the two cultures, you have whatever Little Yachty puts out that's not good. just in their collaborative albums, which seems super boring.
It seems like a really weird conflict of interest to sign like all these trap artists and then sign Deuce. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's interested in that kind of thing.
He is trap. I would describe him under trap over anything else.
I would describe him as like very early trap, and I think Crunk was very early trap.
You're kind of right in that, but like in the present soundscape, it's more trap than anything else. But yeah, I was interested going into this. I didn't think it was gonna be amazing or anything, but Crunk Ain't Dead was fun. And what is this? Well,
I don't know.
It's it has its fun moments, but at the end of the day, it shows where the standard of hip hop is, and the standard of hip hop is copying other artists that are trendy. You have some terrific moments on here before we get into the bad. Crunk Ain't Dead remix featuring Little John, Juicy Day, Project Pat. The hook on the original Crunk Ain't Dead is fantastic, but when you add Little John,
it's too much.
It turns it into an amphetic banger. I don't know what to say.
It's too much.
It literally is too much, and it's amazing in that way. Juicy J, who actually produced the track, is on here with a verse, and I can't think of an icon figure to pass the torch more figuratively than him to be on the track. His verse is top notch. And then Project Pat, the song kind of ends with him.
He's on the
like
track.
He's fine. I just wish he didn't have verse. I don't think it's needed. I
just wish he was in the music video,
and that's about it.
And that's it. I still got the feature, like just had his name on it. I didn't have to say anything; just be on there.
You have Crunk Ain't Dead Mob with Little Tad, Little Thad, and Little Yachty, which has terrific, great hip hop. It has terrific group vocals, which I always say hip hop needs more group vocals.
I love the way they spell
and then
Crunk Ain't Dead Mob on there.
So basically, the group vocals spell out Crunk Ain't Dead letter by letter. Then every letter the starting word will start with whatever letter it is. So it's R. It's like some R word. Something like that. And it goes for all three of their verses, which is fantastic, fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought even Yachty was pulling his weight a ton on this. I just thought it was really...
Actually, I enjoyed Yachty's verse. I think this is probably his best feature in a while.
Yeah, probably a little while, yeah. And Little Thad sounds like if you crossed pollinated T.I. with Rick Ross.
That is a big baby.
That is a big baby who doesn't like hymens. No, he likes them. He likes them secured.
The enemy of the people.
No, he is the people.
He is the people. T.I. versus the pure.
Fat Mac's fun. It's produced actually by Duke Deuce's father, Duke Nitty. It has this terrific sub bass and 808 like cowbell. It has this completely fun triplet flow hook with kickback like a Fat Mac. Get my dick sucked. Bad bitch with a fat ass. She don't give a fuck. It's just fun. I just thought it was a really fun kind of goofy song. There's some other fun moments on here. BHD samples the Nightmare on Elm Street, or is comparable to the chords of the score from Nightmare on Elm Street. There's just some fun moments more on the first half, and then you get some kind of like lackluster moments, like Bad News. It's just kind of bland. It has this like frail string, but it just seems kind of empty and typical what you would expect in a modern hip-hop album. Trap Blues has this pitching that ranges from just terribly clashing with the production of the sax sample and the organ-like keys. It doesn't mix well to passable. It ranges somewhere in that to where it's just like annoying to okay, but not brilliant. I really don't like his vocals on this because it doesn't seem unique to him. Getting on to vocals that don't seem unique to him, the last 4 tracks on this are just not good. They're just boring. They're just so boring. You have Body, which sounds like a Young Thug ripoff, maybe some Little Baby in there, but mostly Young Thug. You have Big Dog, which just sounds like a Trippie Redd / X knockoff. There really isn't a ton of originality in the vocals to these performances. They sound like half-baked rips off other artists, and there isn't a personality to it. Sometimes, like, even the best tracks on here, Duke Deuce doesn't really have a personality. He just has more fun lyricism and either features surrounding him or a fun concept to the track. So, like, Crunk Ain't Dead's fun because the hook's really fun, and the idea of Crunk coming back is fun. And then the Little John feature's fun.
But then when it actually comes back, it won't be very fun.
Crunk Ain't Dead mod's fun because of the group vocals and spelling out Crunk Ain't Dead and having your verse fit to that. Fat Mac's fun because of the triplet flow and the 808 cowbell attached to it. But, like, there isn't a personality that makes these tracks fun. It's the tracks are inherently catchy.
Yeah.
Or they have really good concepts. Or
I feel like he just kind of fell into it more so than made those tracks like his own. I think he almost just like fell into them. Like if Lil Jon, Juicy J, and Project Pat would have released the Crunk Ain't Dead remix by themselves, I think I would have garnered about the same reaction.
Maybe.
I don't think it would have been any different.
Probably.
That's what I'm saying. Like I really just think that Duke Deuce like isn't carving his name out in hip hop. He's just kind of there, and things just fall on his lap, and he's like, all right.
He's not inherently terrible because he has some decent triple
I don't think he's like awful or anything. I just think he's like really generic, and he's not really trying to make his way. He just keeps getting like handed songs that are winners, and he's like, I guess I'll go with it.
I don't have too much to say. There's not a whole lot of personality to this, but it doesn't mean there isn't any fun moments. Keep my own scores if you're telling me this right now. I'm filling up 4.
I guess I'll give it a 4.
That may be a little low, but at the same time, we gotta get real.
I think that's a little high. I think give 4 minus.
I think
take that, Dookie.
Oh my gosh. I don't really want to talk about this next time.
I do. I'm ready to just beat him up.
Because, like, the inherent thing that keeps me back about this next one is the fact that how much I enjoy it as much as I did the last Eminem album, and that's sad. Because here's the thing. Eminem was bad, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. Okay, if that makes sense?
Okay.
So it got to the 5 range because of that. Royce the 5'9" had the Overcomer single. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fucking good. And I saw the Griselda Boys was gonna be on this. So I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. And then, like, I heard about the anti-vaxxing moments on here. And then just the album itself just underperformed to the same level Music to Murder My Meat was at.
I'm ready. Today we're gonna be talking about the latest Royce the 5'9" album, The Allegory. Royce the 5'9's Detroit MC, member of Slaughterhouse, along with Joe Budden, the 3rd greatest rapper of all time.
Don't try to tell me Joel Budden.
Joel Ortiz and King Crooked.
Joel Budden over here.
I think that's such a funny, like, the top 50 rappers list that was going around on Twitter. Like, Joe Budden was number 3.
Don't tell me you like
so funny.
Don't tell me you think Slaughterhouse is iconic. Like,
Slaughterhouse isn't iconic. Like, everybody I think is like kind of iconic, but not really. He's also a member of Bad Meets Evil, along with Eminem and P Rhyme with DJ Premier.
Yeah.
Prime.
Yeah.
Prime.
The reason why I get into this album, we probably want to touch up a 10 for full because Royce the 5'9's never really done it for me. But the single Overcomer was like one of the best singles of the year, hands down.
That's one of the singles to beat. I love Overcomer. I love West Side Gun just being wild on there, and
he's unrestrained. After
amazing.
What would Machine Gun
amazing.
Do? Royce the 5'9 cuts the chains, lets them loose.
West Side can do whatever he wants right now. The iconic
the salute sample on it was
amazing.
fantastic.
I got banned from singing that at home because I sing it too much. West Side's verse is hilarious, and I think the group vocals only add to it. The beat switch up with that soul sample right in the middle of it.
Royce switching up his verse, talking about talking shit about Yellow Wolf, which the best thing about that track probably. I can always go for some Yellow Wolf shit in.
Royce's verse, I love the way that the whole track cuts off.
Yeah.
And then restarts again. Like, you build up all this momentum with that beat switch up. It's so hype, and then done. When the drums add in the group vocals, incredible. And we're back to ground zero. And then Royce's verse comes in, and Royce's verse plays out like an episode of Ancient Aliens. It doesn't make any sense. There's tons of conspiracies on here. He says some weird things, but I love it. And then the very end with the Overcomer, and they're just getting louder and louder. Amazing. I love this track.
I was surprised to see on this album he produced all the tracks on here with some occasional help from other producers. The production on this is phenomenal. I'll give him that. There's a mix of boom bap, some moments of like sample loops that I would expect to see on like a Griselda project. He mixed things that were up to snuff of like the What Would Machine Gun Do project.
Yeah. Which
was very surprising. Like up to Derringer snuff, which is pretty impeccable for someone who I didn't know produced. This album's not good. It's like it's not the worst critically reviewed score I'm gonna give an album by any means, but
No, I don't think it's like a 1. I just think like by principle, it's like not that good. Like by Royce the 5'9's principles and like the things that he talks about off the track or like outside of the studio. I don't know. Like the intro, Mr. Grace, and then Miss Grace later on about like, I mean, Royce claims to be like very like anti-capitalist.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this
Off camera. Yeah.
and then literally at the beginning, it's all about like, I mean, it sounds like this kid is getting sucked into like a pyramid scheme.
Going over this entire thing. Okay, so we established that Royce the 5'9 across this entire thing is very. I'm not gonna say this is a bad thing because like I don't think it is, but anti-capitalist. But his.
No, he's allowed to be. I just think that
Yeah, no.
he's gonna make
that's not the
those
problem of
claims.
this. That's not the problem of this, but it's like over the course of this entire thing, like the thing that I was dreading hearing most that I knew about going into this album was the anti-vaxxing shit. Anti-vaxxing is the most white privilege problem. I don't care what you say. Like that is up there with the flat earth theory. He essentially established himself to be as stupid as B.O.B. on this shit and like still making a conscious album. That's the thing I find the most funny. But like anti-vaxxing itself is essentially just the reason I find it so white privilege is because it is essentially people deciding in their own head who don't have tons of problems as it is, deciding that their most important problem is to go after science in their own way because they usually don't believe in it. And like we get into this Gwyneth Paltrow anti-vax shit, and Royce the 5'9 has the same characteristics. Also, it's very not only elitist, but it's very ableist, especially when he brings up the point, and I'll get into this is a huge segment, of how his son has autism. Bring up the fact that when you bring up these arguments, and this is a thing that this is not new idea that I have to say. This is a very established idea. Bringing up the idea of anti-vaxxing and bringing your son who has autism into the mix, referencing him a couple times throughout this thing, essentially saying, and I was talking to Jonathan about this off camera, is essentially saying that my son is better dead than with autism, which is the biggest ableist statement saying.
Yeah.
It essentially when you conform the message down, it's essentially that's what he's saying. It's also a way of taking guilt, your own personal guilt, which is like you shouldn't have the guilt to begin with because it's not your choice, it's not your fault, you didn't choose to have this, but it's sometimes a way of getting rid of your own personal guilt because at the end of the day it was your genetics. Some people choose to wipe their hands free of the issue, saying, "Oh, this is anti-vax fault," and then distance themselves from their own child. This is things that have been happened. This is a well-doctrined thing that has been established. Anti-vaxxing, vaccines don't cause autism. We need that's duh.
No, that's a very.
If you get a flu shot, you're not gonna make Revival on kamikaze. That's just called boomerism, and Royce is showing a bit of it on here. But it's like it's ableist, it's elitist, it's also very, very, very just showcasing his son and putting him in the front line, which he has no references to anything else in this. He has no references to maybe taking care of his autistic son or having a relationship with his autistic son or showing the struggles in that nature. No, he's showcasing them in that limelight. Essentially, I don't know what the term would be, the correct term to. It's highlighting him in a wrong way.
It's exploiting.
It's exploiting, yeah. He's essentially exploded in that mechanism where the autism is the center focus, not the person. Or maybe the personality that he has. It's just my son.
Dehumanizing.
Yeah. My son has autism. Like, that's the only references we get across this entire thing to his son, or the most notable ones, at least, if anything else is mentioned that I didn't pick up on.
Yeah.
But, like, that's the biggest problem. And that's brought up twice on 2 tracks. But, like, this is a conscious album.
This just feels like a parody of a conscious album.
I'm not saying it's a good conscious album, but what would you solidify this as? Conscious hip hop.
I guess so,
That's like the banner would fall under.
That's what he said it was.
But like it's under conscious hip hop, but it has the same fragmented issues when talking about politics sometimes, and what falls in 2 categories. Sometimes it doesn't understand the purpose of what the fuck he's trying to say, and it goes into like Eminem territory. where like the point is completely misconstrued, and sometimes it's like it's kind of there and it's not completely disingenuous, but it's like it doesn't really serve a purpose in the grander scheme of things that's going on. 2, sometimes the point does have some nuance to it and it can make some interesting ideas, but at the end of the day the tracks aren't compelling enough because Royce on his own is more about rhyme than he is about lyricism. So it's a conscious.
It's very obvious, like why he works with Eminem so often.
Because
like on a lot of these tracks.
You look at Dope Man, that's totally depicted by the flow. That isn't totally dictated by the flow, not by anything that he's actually saying. The flow.
No, if you like listen to, it's basically a guy singing, going, "Dope man, that guy sold me crack." Dope man, like over and
and it
over.
doesn't mean what he's saying isn't wrong because there's like.
No, but I think it's just like touching politics like on a very surface level. And like honestly, I think like the message that resonated throughout this whole project, to me at least, was that you've got to pick your battles. And I think Royce really picked the wrong battles here.
Yeah.
Now, like, I think the whole album coming across, like, trying to talk about, like, the race divide.
Yeah.
And empowering, like, Black Americans across our nation. Like, I think that he did a pretty good job, like, painting those pictures. Like, in Dope Man, while I think it's, like, pretty basic,
yeah.
I think it can paint, like, a picture. Overcomer, I think it's got, like, a great message. But, like, some of these other battles, anti-vaxxing, the homophobic, like, we haven't even gotten into that yet.
Oh, you ready for this one? Upside down. His opening line, and I have to censor some words on here because they're bad. Why the gay bad word trying to fuck the straight bad word? That's trying to fuck the gay bitches that look just like the straight bad word, while the straight bad word that the gay bitches trying to look just like the gay bad word.
Those aren't bad words. We just can't say them.
They're bad. Bad for me.
They'll hurt you. They'll burn your tongue.
But like,
yes, obviously the homophobia on that track, not good. The like anti-capitalist persona you put on outside of the studio versus the capitalist messages that come across this entire project, not obviously that good. The ableism across this entire project, not good. Like, I think that's like the worst part about it. And then we get like this I just lost it. Perspective skit right in the middle. It's 2.5 minutes of Eminem talking about black kids growing up with no black icons. Eminem's white. Like, this is not his story to tell. If you're gonna have Eminem, like, I assume they're best friends at this point. If you're gonna have your best friend on the track, who's like considered one of the greatest rappers of all time, and just be like, hey, I just want you to talk about Black America in the middle of my album. I don't want you to rap. I don't want you to do anything else, but talk about something that you've never had to go through yourself.
It means like the sentiment isn't wrong, but
because like it just honestly, like Eminem outside of like the studio, I think is like one of the more liberal rappers. Like, he's seriously so like left wing. And that, I don't know, like, that just, he should know that. He should have known that.
But it's like, it sounds
battle.
More like just a documentary clip playing out that really doesn't serve
really
a purpose
weird.
In here.
It's very weird.
It's like, one moment I do want to bring up, because it actually has some nuance, talking about Black Savage and the idea of they want the idea of essentially them getting black people forced back to Africa in order so they don't have property here. Mm-hmm. And I like that concept because it's not been touched before in that manner in hip hop. I don't think I care for the track as it owns. I think there's way too many features on it. And
this is like one of the first times people have talked about it.
Yeah.
Like,
and there's nuance to the idea, the theme, the basic theme of the idea of there's a reason why they want black people are almost condemned to go back to Africa in a way. And I like that idea of how they explain that and how they almost want to defy it and keep their land here, keep their identity here, which I really enjoy because it brings some like empowering nature to one of these tracks. But for the most of it, like, people will make out the best of the Griselda boys. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, yeah, honestly, like, now, West Side, I think, best feature on here.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably the best verse on here.
Conway's amazing.
Conway,
again.
I think, does awesome.
Benny's fine.
But Benny just gets stuck on one of the worst tracks on here, which I feel kind of bad about. But also, the sample, extremely edgy. Like, this is Eminem level edgy sample.
What sample was it? I forget.
It was on Upside Down.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was Tom Steiner. Is that what it was? The interpolation of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's lame. As far as like human, I guess Royce like humanizing himself, and we've talked about this. There's another track that I feel like Royce really humanizes himself on, and it's the last track, Hero, with White Gold, where he talks about his father, which I think is really interesting because, like, one,
it talks about the imbalance that his father had because his father has had problems with drugs before.
Yeah,
but it also talks
like,
about the love he has for his father at the same time. And
it's really interesting because, like, on one hand, I'm thinking like he straight up says like, yeah, there was abuse at home.
Yeah,
like, yeah, my dad was awful to me, but like we've worked it out, and now I respect him, and he's like one of my heroes. Which, like, that to me is it's a really interesting dynamic because on one hand I'm like, that's not good. Obviously, like, your dad should not have been that way. But on the other hand, I'm like, I guess I can't really knock him because they worked it out, and now they're both better for it. It's a very interesting picture that Royce is like painting of himself for us as an audience.
Yeah, because mostly all this album is politics without humanizing. It's just stating off mantras without really meaning anything. And the mantras could be important, but they don't mean anything.
That's why it reminds me of Pyramid Scheme. I'm not buying it.
It reminds me more of Pyramid Head. Because he has a huge ass pyramid on his head, and he's
like the Royce to 5'9". Obviously has.
He has the fucking the cloud sword.
the Buster Blade. Yeah.
I don't really have too much. This is disappointing, and it's not the lowest rated.
I had a bunch to say.
It's just, I don't know what to score this. Like, and the more we discuss this, the more negative that stands out about this album. The really only thing that stands out is Overcomer.
That's what I'm saying. Like, my two favorite tracks on here were Overcomer and Hero. Like, were there others? Yeah, I think there's some other like decent tracks. I Don't Age. I think that was pretty decent. I think that Dope Man, while it is like cheesy, is still like, it's just still pretty decent.
I like
also,
Fubu.
Cedric the Entertainer was on there. Fubu
Conway's part's good.
Yes,
which is like the first half.
I don't know. There's certain parts, but then like we get tracks like Tricked, which I just think are stupid. Like, we've been tricked. Yeah, we've been tricked. Like,
there's no like, he's one taking so long to explain these ideas and having so many of them, but two, he doesn't emphasize or empower anybody with explaining them.
Yeah,
it's more about egotistically power off, which in theory, when I explain that, it sounds like it would be Eminem territory. That one
they are
range
cut from the same cloth.
But listening to his experience wasn't as painful as that. It was more similar to Music to Get Murdered By range. But like, in theory, the fundamental problems with this album outweigh where it kind of is. I don't know what to rate this. Keep my eyes horse if you're telling me. Unless I'm just gonna say, right now at this current moment, probably change. I'm gonna have 4. That's probably around the ballpark where it is anyway.
I'll do that.
Because the musical...
I'm going to give Overcomer and Hero their own separate scores.
Overcomer's 10 out of 10.
Overcomer's a 10. Hero is like is probably solid 8.
Everything else is...
Anything else is a 4. Tricked is a 0.
Upside Down is a
negative 4.
Infinity. This is tough. I didn't really like this review because I just don't... There's just too much political you have to really get political when talking about a political commentary that really doesn't focus on politics and more about the braggadocio ego, and that's just a tangled mess of webs that I don't like entering because it's just all flip-sided. And
this is about how I feel about this album.
I am it. I need a cigarette after this. And to also sit in the rain with the umbrella with clown makeup on. Because at the end of the day, I feel like the clown after listening to
Royce
this.
is the clown.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. That's this week's episode of the Anthony and Todd Show. Until next time, if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Anthony and Todd. You can find us at youtube.com/the Anthony and Todd Show. You can find us at Podbean, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts,
Your
Spotify.
PlayStation 4.
Yeah, your PlayStation 4, if it has Podcap on it. Just search Anthony and Todd, your favorite podcast browser. And I think that's about it. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. I don't think I have anything else to say. Patreon.com/the Anthony and Todd Show if you want to support us monetarily, but if you don't, I don't care. And that's it. Until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see you, boyos.
Bye, everybody.